call the meeting to order. I was the pro temp from the previous council, and so we have to elect officials tonight, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And the first thing that we want to take a look at is, go to the minutes, Jackie. You don't need to do that.
We don't need to do anything
Okay.
except that we can't
Okay, the meeting's been called to order, and the first thing on the agenda would be the election of the president and pro tem. So we need motions.
Nominate Doug McAbee.
Second.
Patty Wartella.
Oh, that's the president pro tem.
No, he said
Oh,
president.
president, I'm sorry, excuse me. I thought he said.
You said pro tem. Did you say pro tem? Because he said
Yeah.
what did you say?
I thought I was
Mr. Jackson couldn't hear.
the pro tem that opened the meeting.
He was pro tem.
Oh,
I misunderstood what you said, okay.
No, he understands that. We had a motion.
Well, we don't, we have a nomination.
We have a nomination.
Can we hear everybody?
No, your mics aren't on.
Please.
Okay, Pete Murray nominated Doug McAbee. Has he accepted?
No, I didn't. Nominate Patty Wartella.
Second.
Here we go.
Accepted the time?
Okay, motion been made and seconded.
It's just nominated.
Yeah, just close nomination.
Karen.
There is no other.
So we're going to take a vote.
Yep, need to take a vote. You want to do a vote,
Do you want me to call it?
yeah.
Do you want to just do a show of hands or a yes or no, or have one person? Okay. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
I'd make it unanimous.
Okay, with that, then I'd like to just have election of pro tem and make a nomination. I'd like to nominate Doug McAbee for pro
Could you
tem.
speak up, Patty, please, from your mic? Okay.
I'd like to make a nomination of Doug McAbee as pro tem for the Village Goodrich Council. I need a second.
Second.
Any second?
It's a nomination, you just need an acceptance. They need to accept the nomination.
That's right.
That being stated, we've got Mr. W. We've got Mr. President, and do we want to take a vote on that this year?
I think it's good.
Okay.
Jackson?
Yes.
McAbee?
Yes.
Yes.
Horton?
Yes.
Maureen?
No.
At this time, I'd like to open up the portion of this meeting to public input. I want to make sure that everybody's aware of that we're going to allow 3 minutes. 3 minutes would be allowed for each person. If you'll come up to the mic, please give out your name, your address, and what the issue is that you'd like to discuss. We'd like to make sure that the meeting is in order. We want everyone to be able to speak for 3 minutes and keep everything in order, and everybody will be able to be heard. Thank you.
That one, I think we need a motion to add it to the agenda. Even though it legally has to be there because it's omitted,
By accident.
make the motions, put it on, and unanimously vote it in.
Okay. We'd like to have a motion. Unfortunately, when the agenda was placed, public input was not included into it. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to include public inquiry onto the agenda so we can allow the public to speak.
So moved.
Maureen,
Yes.
Horton,
Yes.
Portella,
Yes.
McAbey,
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Russo.
I'm David Lucic, former council member, and I guess my question is why was this meeting conducted at this particular time? I guess I don't understand that, because we have a meeting within, 2 weeks? So if you could explain to the council or the people here why we're doing this now and not in 2 weeks when we could have done it?
That's a real good question, and I'd be happy to answer that for you. Actually, Mr. Lucic, Mr. McAbey and I had a meeting with Miss Sidge on the 22nd of November, and we came in to discuss a few agenda items, and at that point, we were informed that the meeting that was held on November the 8th, which was our normal council meeting, was null and void because the election was not certified until the 16th of November. With that being stated, it was stated at that point that all the items that we discussed and voted on, made motions on, were null and void. So we thought to get everything up to speed and where it should be, this is what would have been at the best interest. And that was the only reason why we held this meeting and why we're doing what we're doing today. And that way, everything can be on, so to speak, on the path of the next meeting. No other reason.
So are there any new agenda items that you're going to propose that were on the original agenda items?
No, we just, what's on the agenda.
What's on the original was going to be proposed right now? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Shirley Coutman Jones, 5425 Stimson Road, Davison, Michigan. The purpose for my attendance is I'm currently serving on the Genesee District Library Strategic Funding Planning Committee, and the library obviously has been impacted with a rollback on their original millage. And so they have an informal survey that they have asked that different public meetings and community meetings that I would attend and ask people. You don't have to sign your name to it. It's a survey regarding the library. The first question is, what is the value of Genesee District Library, GDL, to you or your family? If you visit the library, how many times do you visit? What services do you utilize? Books, periodicals, audiobooks, DVDs, internet access? Do you think there is any value to the schools and the community by the services provided by the GDL? And lastly, and being frank, due to the Headley Amendment, the voter-approved original 1 mil has been reduced or rolled back to .7895. Would you approve an increase of approximately .25 of a mil for the library system to restore the millage back to the 1 full mil? And it's just an informal survey, and if I might just leave one on the table for the council members and one happy for the clerk, and I can leave some in the back.
One question I have for you though, when's the deadline for those to be submitted for, for their stats to be accumulated?
Well, I'm picking them up at the end of the meeting, at all of the meetings. I mean, it's just 4 very easy questions.
Do you
so.
have enough?
Yeah, I have plenty.
Oh, good.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Yes.
Yes, this is Norm Bass, 10150 Hawthorne Ridge in the Condo Association. And I guess as a citizen of this community or whatever, I'm under the understanding that we're looking for change in our community or whatever. And I beg of the council, okay, when they make changes and decisions, okay, I would hope that they make full discussions on the effect of the services compared to what the taxpayers have given to our society, our community here, and do a lot of thinking before any major changes are made, and a lot of study and thought be put into it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Jerry Kaspersky, 7253 Hawthorne Ridge. If I take what Mr. Bass said to be, if it is what I think, I want to agree with him. I think that we do need to study everything. We probably need some changes, but we do need to have thorough study done. So I agree with Mr. Bass on that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Bill Gibbs, 8102 Rose Lane, and I'm reading the editorials, I'm reading all these things. I understand that, we need some change in things, but my question is, maybe I came in just a few seconds too late. What I understand is we fired the attorney last time. Now I've been told that this meeting didn't count last time, so did we fire the attorney? What about all the hearsay that we're hearing in the papers? I'd like just a little explanation on that, of what's taking place. From what I gather, we've changed road commissioners in the middle of it. Are we going to lose services? I mean, I've talked to people at Atlas Township. Their roads get plowed 3 days later. Mine get plowed the next day. I'm a very conservative guy, and I want to cut back expenses, and I understand that. But at the same time, we need to think about it before we can start doing it. So what, out of the decisions made at last meeting, what still stands today?
Actually, Mr. Gibbs, I'll go ahead and answer your first question, and then we'll go on. When the new council was elected, there were a couple of changes, but what you need to understand is the attorney that, this is on the agenda for tonight. You'll see what happens there, but the attorney that was recommended on the 8th, those recommendations and motions and what we voted on were null and void, and I hope you understand what I meant by the certification of the election wasn't done till the November 16th. But unfortunately, we had to come back and we had to revisit what we've done. I want you to understand that the recommendation that we are going to make tonight is going to be to have an independent study. The independent study will discuss at that time, and you'll be able to hear that. As far as legal counsel's concerned, the attorney that was recommended and who we voted on is an attorney that does not take a retainer fee to keep him here as our attorney. He's only going to charge by the hour. It saves the taxpayers a tremendous amount of money. The other thing is he's well-versed in, I personally made that recommendation and it was voted on, but again, we have to revisit it tonight because of that reason, because of the vote not being certified. Now, you asked about us taking into consideration about the road services. We wouldn't do anything that would even, we wouldn't consider anything that would even give any hardship to anybody in this village. What we want to see, and what I recommended 2 years ago when I first took office, is to have an independent study done to reevaluate all the positions and everything within the village so we could have an independent evaluation on all this. I do think that we owe this to the residents. I really do.
Oh, and I totally agree, but I mean, we owe a review, and I've read in the paper that we're gonna review this stuff, and then all of a sudden, I missed the last meeting, and I don't make it to a whole lot of meetings, okay, but all of a sudden I've heard decisions were made that it's like, that's called review? I mean, that just went right over my head. I mean,
I feel sorry that you got that information like that, and I want you to know that I wouldn't have made a decision like that unless we had substantial information in front of us that we could discuss with the public. I want you to know that.
So is that irresponsible, reporting from the newspaper? Because isn't that what the newspaper said?
Well, there was a lot of editorials, if that's what you want to talk about, but we're not discussing that. But I want you to understand that nothing other than recommendations have been made to evaluate.
Okay, I was under the impression that we fired the attorney, that's the impression, am I incorrect?
No.
You are correct.
Okay.
Yes. Nothing, this is what I made the recommendation, I hope you understand, and I'm not trying to minimize this at all, but we made a motion and voted on it to relieve Mr. Tom McKinney and hire Mr. Jack Belzer. Now,
aren't we in the middle of a lawsuit with something? Does that make sense to hire an attorney in the middle of that?
But I understand, and let me say this in itself is nothing that Mr. Belzer and Mr. Tom McKinney cannot work out. I'm looking at cost savings, I'm looking at an attorney that we can trust ourselves, and that includes myself as an attorney. I didn't do this without...
Making a motion, what does that mean? I mean, you made a motion to eliminate him, so that to me tells me he's fired. But now you're saying it's a recommendation, so what?
No. This was at our last meeting, but now we've got to go and we've got to do the same thing all over again because of that election not being certified on the 8th.
Yeah, now, has the board, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up a bunch of time here, but has the council even seen the resume of this attorney? Now, according to the paper, that they have not. I'm seeing some faces nod, no, they have not. So, I mean...
I think what you're talking about in the paper are some letters that have been sent in.
One was not an editorial, one was from, right from the citizen. Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm getting two answers right here. One is that we didn't fire, but two is we made a motion to get rid of him, so...
We didn't fire him because we couldn't. We're in that stage. As far as your question about the case that was in front of the attorney, Jackie said at the last meeting that this was a frivolous lawsuit over a pile of dirt. Now, there certainly is no reason why we cannot replace one attorney with another to handle a frivolous lawsuit.
And I agree, it may be frivolous, but I mean, it's redundant. if we're bringing, if we've got an attorney that's worked how many months on it already, and to bring another attorney in, shouldn't we at least get rid of that lawsuit before we start making rash
They
decisions
work
like
together,
this?
they will have to get information from each other, but
So we're paying
Mr.
two attorneys at that
No,
time?
Mr. Belzer can handle this very easily, he's very well versed in it.
He would be brought up to speed.
But we will, that's on our agenda, and we will deal with that, and that's on number one.
I mean, I'm just going, again, I'm going from reading an editorial, I think it came from Mr. McAbee, saying that we're gonna take things nice and slow and review things, to, we made these decisions, or you made these decisions. Okay, and that's.
It was voted on, but that, they're null and void at this
Okay,
point.
that was my original question. So is it, basically, last meeting, November 8th, that I missed, is a meeting that never occurred,
Correct.
Well,
in essence, as far as a vote. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Borchelli, can you clarify something?
Keith Walworth, 8150 Pine Street, Goodrich. Patty, as far as the Mr. McKinney is concerned, I keep seeing you quoted in the paper saying that we have him on retainer. And I'm not certain, but I believe that he's hourly, isn't he? So you keep saying in the paper that it's going to be cheaper because he's on retainer, but he's not on retainer. So I think you need to clarify that and state that correction.
Well, then maybe Jackie, you can tell us that in our budget with the attorney, we allot how much for our
Mr.
budget?
McKinney gets paid $110 an hour.
Uh-huh.
He works on the quarter hour. He does not charge mileage to come to these meetings that he's been attending before. He does charge to come to the meeting. He has never been on a retainer, ever. There is a budget number, just like any other
But
budget
he's on the
number.
budget. He is, and he's on the budget as far as legal counsel.
And then as
Just like
far
I'm on the
as,
budget and you're on the budget.
as far as
He's on the
this,
budget. He
the
doesn't
lawsuit,
have-
I'm not familiar with the lawsuit. I keep hearing frivolous. How much is the lawsuit?
If I said the word frivolous, the meaning of that was it's over a pile of dirt. It's almost $400,000, which is not a frivolous amount of money.
Okay,
The
and then,
last time I heard it was 100,
okay,
I heard
and then-
150.
so I don't know.
If you would come into the office and ask a question, you'd get an
the
answer.
last thing I'd like to say is if you guys want to hire a new attorney, I really think you guys need to look at it, look at this lawsuit. If you decide you want another lawyer and you go and you get another lawyer, so be it. But you need to understand that you will be paying two lawyers at that time. We pay, Mr. McKinney is basically an employee. If you're not paying him anymore, he has no obligation to transfer any information over to the new attorney.
Mr. Walworth, I appreciate your comments, and I have taken all that in consideration, and I've spoke with Mr. Belzer regarding that, because I did take those concerns to
Okay.
him, so.
I just have one more statement, and that is if you're gonna hire an attorney, I think you need to have him come, make a presentation, show his credentials, what other cases, that he's worked on. Last meeting, I heard nothing other than it's time for a change. I didn't hear Mr. McKinney's doing a terrible job, Mr. McKinney's too expensive, Mr. McKinney, I didn't hear any reasons as to why you guys were getting rid of the current attorney, and I think you guys need to state some reasons why you want to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now I'm gonna have to talk. Al Ryan, Shinnecock, Goodrich. First I'm gonna add, I dealt with Mr. McKinney for 2 months. I asked him 5 times to give me the procedure for the code enforcement. He couldn't read it apparently, because he denied me that. I went to Jackie, asked for it, she denied me that. Let me just start over. As most of you know, I've had problems with the village this past year. When I asked Ms. Sedge about the code enforcement procedure, I was ignored at first, and then assigned to the village attorney, wasting thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money, going back and forth with an attorney when she had the papers in a desk. She didn't give them to me. So I come to the committee, I talked to Richard Horton, I talked to Pete Morey, I talked to David, went to their houses, talked to them about this. Said, we got a problem here. Jackie won't talk to me. The attorney, Mr. McKinney, actually said,
this is over. We're not talking about it anymore. He's the judge and jury, apparently. These gentlemen never called me back or looked into it. So I was forced to go to the Freedom of Information Act. Oh, by the way, Ed York, the president of the council, refused to put me on the agenda. So I go to the Freedom of Information Act, and I am provided with a forged document and 2 letters saying they contacted me in August that were dated September 15th. Jackie, do you know where those came from?
I don't have any documentation in front of me, I can't answer.
Patty, you gave them to me, do you know? When, under Freedom of Information, you gave me these documents from August, dated September 15th, on Village of Goodrich literature.
So they came from the code enforcement officer.
Does he have a computer at home and paper?
I have no idea.
Someone should look into that. So I was forced to go to law enforcement. Excuse me?
He no longer works here.
I know that, but someone's got to have records. He obviously kept records, didn't he?
I have no idea, and I only
Okay.
requested, it was a freedom of
Well,
information request.
and you
I
came
did
up
the
with
best
them,
I
right?
could.
Very good. Okay, I don't want to